Welcome back to Summer Reading List, the podcast where we take a look at your favorite,
or maybe your least favorite,
required reading books. I'm Marina Lafrosia.
And I'm Monica Birch. And on today's episode, we are going to go over George Orwell's Animal Farm. Ooh! For those of you listening, you can't see it, but we have a beautiful setup.
A beautiful farm, I would say.
Yes, a beautiful farm. You'll have to go to our social medias, like our Instagram and our Twitter and whatnot.
To check it out.
Because we put a lot of work into it. We have some pretty big chickies. And a king pig, which will make sense
in a bit.
Okay. I just want to point out, you have no idea how bad I wanted to say 1984.
When you were like,
I was like,
we did that already.
We love George Orwell. Yes. So anyways.
This is actually the first author we've come back to.
Yes, it is. Even though we probably will. Like, I feel like Agatha Christie, we're going to do more
of. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's many authors we will come back to. This is just the first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, as always, we'll start off with, like, our experience of the book in the past. So I can go ahead and go first.
Go for it.
So I actually first read this book in 7th grade, which I think I've mentioned before on the podcast was that year that I was able to pick books off like a list. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that I read Animal Farm because my dad told me it was a good book, which like, I don't know why. I mean, as like an 11-year-old, I would be like, that makes sense. Like I should read that book that my dad said would be interesting. But I trusted and I actually did like it. And then you have to read it freshman year of high school, usually, I want to say. That's when I read it, at least. So that was only, like, a few years later. So not much of a difference, I would say, in interpretation from, like, an 11-year-old to a 14-year-old. Now...
Did you maybe get more of the political stuff, or was at that point it was, like, the
I
same?
would say, like, kind of. I think, like, when I actually read the book in 7th grade, that my dad did explain it to me a little bit.
That makes sense.
So then I kind of... Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
I feel like that's just not as big of a gap.
Yeah.
Because, like, middle school to high school. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Especially early high school like that.
Yeah. And I was going to say, scarily, now, it has been just a little over 10 years since I was a freshman in high school. So, that is more time to grow and understand probably what the book is trying to say. But, yeah, I have a much different understanding now, obviously, than I did 10 years ago.
Yikes. Never thought I would have to say or hear the term 10 years ago like that.
In reference to our own lives?
Yeah.
Okay.
Disturbed. So, my experience, I definitely read it before. Unfortunately, I cannot remember what grade. So, it must have been middle school or early high school also, but it's not like, oh, I know for sure. And I think it was another one of those ones where you could choose yourself and did like an AR quiz on it, because I don't remember it being like taught very much. The only memory I have, and it's like I like it, of it is like reading it in my grandparents' house.
Oh, that's nice.
So like I don't, definitely before I could drive, which I mean I would definitely remember any memory at that point. But yeah, just like me sitting at my grandma's house like reading through it is like the only memory I have. But I liked it. I remember thinking it was good.
It's also very short, which is very appealing as somebody who's reading for school.
Yeah, and it's not as dense as like, because there's some books that are short, but they're like, holy crap, you cannot get through them. Frankenstein. And it's just like, but this one's good. You can get through it. You understand what it's saying.
Yeah. It's very quick.
So I liked it. It was good. I did understand the political stuff, I want to say. Maybe not the in-depth, but I understood it was like, this is bad.
Yeah.
So, and this is about humans. But yeah. So now, as usual, love that voice for me. We'll talk about how we feel now that we are 10 years older.
Yes.
And understand how to read books a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay. And what those topics mean. So do you want to go first again since you...
Yeah, sure. Okay. So this time, as we've kind of just referenced a whole bunch in the last like 30 seconds, now that we actually like understand things like politics and like social issues and things like that, this book is completely different. Mm-hmm. I feel like obviously if you could still like pull it down to that one line of like, you know, like they're doing bad stuff because they want to rule everything. Yeah. And you get that same like understanding like when you're a kid versus when you're older, but you actually understand why the things they're doing are bad, and you're like, oh, I've seen that in actual life.
Yeah.
And so I understand why that concept is bad. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I actually like it a lot. I would say it's probably one of the ones I like more.
Yeah. would agree with you.
Yeah, and I would say that I do like Animal Farm better than 1984, in my opinion.
That's one of the ones that's short and dense.
Yeah.
Real short and dense. I agree too. I don't know why. I mean, this is diverting. I was going to say delving. Diverting off of like the topic for a second, but I feel like with Animal Farm, for me, I feel like because I could picture animals a little bit easier. Whereas sometimes in dystopians, I feel like things are so like out of pocket,
like far removed.
Yeah, that I'm like I can't picture it, and for me, like the more you can picture it, the easier it is to read.
Yeah.
So like Talking Animals was a little bit easier to like. It is a less dense book for sure, but like that also is another reason. Like for me, 1984 was like, what is this saying?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's that same way that like fantasy novels, if they don't have like a map in the front, you like can't understand where anything is going on.
Or like a good setup at first. Brave New World does that to me too. I mean, I haven't read it in a long time, so I can't wait till we read that. Yeah. But I remember reading that and being like, what's happening? Yeah. You did just read it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah,
we'll
I thought the same thing. Yeah.
So I can say how I felt now, as I kind of already said, commenting on Marina's. I really liked it. Again, I also picked up on more things. I did try to, as always, find more things just outside of like the obvious political, like based on story.
Yeah.
But it was also interesting for me because I weirdly love to read up on like history stuff, not American history, but like different European histories. And I do need to get better at reading other history stuff too. But like I've learned way too much about like the Russian Tsar, like Nicholas, who was overthrown, and then Stalin eventually took over. So I was like, okay, I know what this is in reference to, and like, so it just felt interesting in that perspective. But yeah, I really like this book. I'm excited to talk about it, so we can start talking about it.
Yeah, so if we want really quick, I know you had like a few points that we could talk about Orwell. Since we've already talked about him before, we're kind of not going to dive real deep.
So yeah, like Marina just said, we've talked about him before. If you would like to hear more about Orwell,
check out 1984 episode.
Yep, check out 1984 with our guest Alia on it. Very good episode. We actually have Big Brother staring at us from behind the camera.
Yep. So go check that out if you want to know more about Orwell.
Exactly. So we'll skip a bunch of that stuff. Something I don't know if we said before. I didn't realize he was Imperial Police.
Oh yeah, we both talked about how we just
There's a really good chance it's in 1984 of me going, he's in Imperial Police.
And then we're both like, what?
But that was a really interesting fact to read, like, after reading Animal Farm, because I'm like, that makes sense, like, seeing Imperial rule firsthand, and then being like, so, like...
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's most of his stuff. I think we talked about his core things in 1984, so I'll talk more about, like you said, related to Animal Farm. And as I kind of already mentioned, it's based on Stalinism and Joseph Stalin coming to power. So like we'll talk about Napoleon in a little bit. That's basically like Stalin. And so that's what I was saying. It's like I was looking at Jones as like the Russian Tsar.
Oh yeah.
And then I even like started thinking like, who's Anastasia? There isn't, but like wouldn't that have been so funny?
Okay, I was gonna say that's actually the only one I know about. Like, Anastasia.
But I don't know the timeline of the Anastasia rumor, so I have no idea if that was even a thing yet.
Yeah.
But I was literally thinking like, could I figure out someone's Anastasia? But no, maybe Molly. I don't know.
Maybe
not really, but. So yeah, that was why that was kind of interesting to me. Sorry, I was reading something interesting on here. So basically the book, and we'll go into this more, but it's shown that Orwell tried to make it about people who choose power over the well-being of others. And that's something we talked about a little bit in 1984, is a lot of people like to use Orwell's books and put in their own political agenda, but it's literally stated by Orwell and other things and talked about with Orwell so much. He's never really like been like, no, this one or that one. It's like, just no, would you like to say it?
Totalitarianism.
Perfect. No totalitarianism.
I've been struggling with that word for like forever.
Yes.
And I was worried about saying it on the podcast, but
I made you do it. And you did it perfect. But he doesn't like totalitarianism, authoritarianism, dictators. Doesn't like that. He doesn't like people who just take control and do things for themselves. So both 1984 and Animal Farm are really just messages about that, not about a specific...
Yeah.
I mean, obviously dictatorships are like a specific political thing.
It's like, because I would say, especially because, we're in America, and like when they teach us it, they kind of are like, oh, this is communism, and communism is bad, which is like, I don't know, it's so weird. I feel like
it's more
like,
nuanced.
I was gonna say it's like older teachers, I want to say,
yeah,
maybe people who kind of were in that whole era of like, you know, having to worry about that,
scared about communism and the Cold War, and or is that what it was called, the Cold War?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like, it's not really a commentary, and maybe you can disagree with us, but I disagree with you, if you think that. But it's not really a commentary on communism. It's a commentary on leaders who take control and are overpowerful. And it just happens to have, in a few of our examples in the world, people have said, this is communism, or this is socialism, and then it's not.
Yeah, it's the same way that we talked about in 1984, how in the book multiple times they're like, oh, was it even good under capitalism? And we're like, okay, that's literally in the book. Like,
yeah.
So
which is kind of said in here, so it was interesting. Like, they start to think those things, and I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that was more about Animal Farm, but like we said, you know, we've talked about Orwell before, so that was just things Orwell is noted to say, or like, at least like written about Orwell. So I think we can get started.
Yeah. Okay. So again, like we always do, we're gonna kind of just pick out a few plot points, discuss around that, and then talk about any like themes or anything.
Yeah, any leftover thing. Yeah. And then if there's anything left over, we'll obviously get to it. Yep. You know us at this point, hopefully. If not, get to know us.
Yes, and start at episode 1, Frankenstein.
We're plugging so much.
We have to.
I know, I love it though.
Okay, so let's go ahead. So in the beginning of the novel, we go to Manor Farm, and there's actually like a meeting called by the animals. And it's actually the pig named Old Major. He is dying, and he gives a speech to all the other animals in like that are on the farm, saying that, you know, they've been treated wrong by the humans. They're oppressed. They're pretty much treated like slaves. And then he's saying there's going to be an animal rebellion, like you guys have to do like work for it. It might not be in your lifetime, like, and he's like giving this speech because it's like his dying words.
Yeah, he died like 3 days later.
Yeah, so he's kind of just telling them like, we need to stand up for ourselves, and you might not see the rebellion, but it's coming.
And they really resonated with it. They absolutely loved it. Something quick I'll say about it, and I found it really interesting. I think it's actually a marked page on accident, but they sing the song Beast of England in that moment, and I found it really odd, and you can maybe explain it to me, but he says, when I was a little pig, my mother and the other sows would sing it, and they only knew the first 3 words. So then, like, how does he know the whole song?
Oh,
or does he maybe learn it as an adult? I don't know, but I just thought that was kind of odd. I'm like,
or if he just
made it up. That's what I've been wondering. I was like, did Mage just make up the rest of the song? Like, so I always thought that was an interesting point, because literally the page before was like, my mother only knew the first 3 words, which is just like that. But luckily, it's an easy page to find. Beasts of England. That's the first 3 words. So
okay, so that kind of becomes like their rallying song, as we see like later on. But yeah, so they sing that at the end of the speech, and they just sing it until all the animals know it. And that ends the beginning. And then it mentions that Old Major does die, indeed, 3 days later.
Yeah. Don't know why I remember that so well, as we should, though. So the animals are thinking, like Major said, you know, maybe this rebellion won't happen in our lifetime. But then Jones does something that really sets them off. And they just kind of like accidentally do it. Yeah. Like they just kind of lose their minds. Not lose their minds, but you get it. That feeling of just like you snap.
They had enough.
They had enough. And
it was a good opportunity.
They ran him off the farm, and it became Animal Farm.
Yes. So they do like rename it. Like,
they rename it to Animal Farm because the name of the original farm is oppressing to them, because that's where they were harmed. And so, yeah, this is now when they start to take control of and start planning things out and figuring out how to have a society without humans. And in that, because trying to set up a society, they create 7 commandments. Yes. Which we'll read to you guys.
Yeah, so, okay, so I'll read like the first 3 and then you can read the others. Okay. So the first one is, whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. No animal shall wear clothes.
And then it's, no animal shall sleep in a bed. No animal shall drink alcohol. I feel like my mind's messing up the word shall. no animal shall kill any other animal, and most importantly, all animals are equal. And a lot of those they kind of set up in the book, like they went to kill a rat and they were like, no, he's on 4 legs. Mm-hmm. Or the birds were like, well, we walk on 2 legs, and they were like, well, the wings are basically, you know, it's 4. The fingers, or it was something like the fingers or the thumbs, like the hands, I think they said was the main, like, that's when you're bad. So yeah, those were their, like, laws, their commandments. I mean, we know what commandments are, that they ran by. But the only people that could really read were the pigs, and they did try to teach, I mean, by the way, this was all written by Snowball.
Yes, so there's actually 2 pigs that kind of become in charge, Snowball and Napoleon, and they're kind of like leading the rest of the animals after they overthrow Jones, so that they have some kind of, like, somebody to look to, like a leader. And
I would say while Snowball's there, I feel like Napoleon did, like, nothing except cause havoc.
No, the whole time. I mean, as we'll find out shortly, but...
Poo-pooing on everything Snowball does and making life harder for Snowball, while Snowball's actually... I was like, oh, Snowball, because he was trying to build, like, a genuinely good society. And Napoleon's just like... So...
Very sad.
Love my sounds. So that actually does move us on to our next point, and it's that... Oh, you actually did have that written there. They fight a lot, Napoleon and Snowball. Like, they mention every time one of them's doing something, the other one's pissed off in some way. So yeah, that's just a big issue. And I would say then it's just kind of like things start to build, but the next big point would be the windmill.
Yeah, so they talk about, well, Snowball talks about building a windmill because he believes, like, if the windmill can generate electricity, then they can have, like, a better living and, like, better way of life. So they can have, like, the heated stalls and, like, electricity, so they don't have to use oil for the lanterns. Hot and cold water.
And it would help with some of their tasks. I know, like, one of the pros was they would get a 3-day work week. So, like, there were certain tasks that could be done with electricity and, like, machines. And not Snowball, Napoleon would just absolutely, like, he wasn't too overt at first, but it was very clear Napoleon had nothing to do with it, didn't like it. He peed on the plans because they were, like, all spread out on the ground, and he just walked in and said nothing.
The way that scene is written, hilarious. So funny too.
I was like,
it's just like he walks around, he, like, snuffs at the ground, and then it's like, and then he just lifted his leg and peed on it.
Feels too real for, like, the most animalistic part of the book. Yeah, like, this feels real. Like, has no legit reason to say the plan's bad, so it's just like, nah, I don't like this,
and then leaves.
So yeah, that's a big contentious point. And I think it's interesting to point out Snowball, like, designed the plans from reading, like, 3 different books. So Snowball's really smart.
Yeah, and they got a whole bunch of books from, like, the farmhouse where Jones, like, lived in, because they don't, like, live in there because, you know, as we know from, like, the commandments.
They, like, walked through it to see, and they might go in to get things.
Yeah, they got the books and things out of there.
Living in there is bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel so bad for Snowball because I feel like he was doing such a good job. And, like, life under him would have been so nice.
I know.
He seemed like he genuinely cared. Like, the battle, it's not on here, so it's, like, we can just say it quick, but, like, the Battle of the Cowshed, Snowball, like, charged in. He did a good job.
Yeah.
We stand. Maybe.
Sad.
He was even, like, teaching classes and stuff.
He tried really hard to get a lot of the animals to band together and have their own, like, interests.
Like
clubs.
Unions. Is what I was
their own unions. Yeah, pretty much. Like, there was, like,
educating
the hens,
them.
For their eggs, and then they were trying to educate, like, the animals, like, teaching them the alphabet and how to read. So
Poor Boxer trying to learn the alphabet.
I know.
I felt that.
Yeah. So there's, like, a couple of, like, key animals, which I guess we'll just, like, mention real quick, so that way you know who they are when we talk about them. So Boxer is, like, the big horse on the farm, and he's, like, described as very, like, muscular, very, like, hardworking and, like, tough, so he's like good to have around.
And he's not dumb, but he's not as smart as the pigs.
Book smart.
Yeah, he's not book smart. He's, like, he couldn't learn the alphabet.
Yeah,
but everything else
the
he
first
did was
4
really
letters.
Great. Yeah. And then I liked when they said he learned the other 4, he forgot the first 4, and I'm like, oh, poor baby. He's good. There's Molly, who really didn't like any of the stuff with animalism, which, by the way, is the name of their, like, religion? Or not their religion, but, like, their belief system.
Yeah, their
belief system.
Like, what they're run under.
Maybe their government is animalism. There we go. But she liked being under the humans, the ribbons, the sugar, all of that, so.
Yeah, so she's kind of just
Fair.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the people who were imperialists and didn't want to see the Tsar leave. That's what Molly is, maybe. Or maybe, like, the oligarchs or something. Because, like, she had the ribbons, the sugar, so she had all the finer things. So
and
getting
then
the
that's
finer
why
things.
she missed,
Yeah.
That does make sense. Here we go.
Sorry.
Okay, and then there's Clover, who's, like, the other horse.
We like
who's
Clover.
very nice. She's also older.
She's smart.
She's just another horse that's there. And she's, like, again, like, kind of smart, but not as smart as they describe the pigs to be.
Yeah, the pigs are, like,
the pigs can do pretty much everything people can do, it seems, in this version of pigs.
This version.
And then, like, right under that is, I guess, like, Benjamin the donkey, who's the next character, I guess, we're going to talk about. And he's kind of part of that little group with, like, the horses.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting in the introduction of this version of the book, because the other version from, like, a few years ago doesn't have this intro. But this one, written actually this year, the guy talked about how his family, like, went through, was it the Holocaust?
I don't know.
I want to say it was,
part.
Yeah. And how he had members of his family who he was reminded of in Benjamin, because it was just like that mindset of having to go through all of that trauma, and then it just changed to another trauma, and people are like, oh, it's different, and they're like, it's not. So I just thought that was an interesting take.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, I don't know if it was Nazism, it might have been like the Cold War and the Berlin Wall, like going up and down, they went through all of that. So it was just very interesting, he said, which I thought that was a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Clover, I want to say, aside from Benjamin and the pigs, I would say Clover is the only one that does, like, critical thinking that we know of.
Yeah.
Like, Benjamin, I feel like, does, but he doesn't say it out loud.
Yeah, he kind of never says anything. That's, like...
But I feel like he's definitely thinking it.
No, he is, for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyone else really important? There's a bunch of dogs.
Yeah,
they're really named.
Yeah. I think in the beginning, they have a name, but... Okay, so there's a lot of dogs. They hang out around the pigs because the pigs took puppies when they came into power from the dogs on the farm.
Napoleon,
and then,
specifically.
Yeah, Napoleon kind of
so I'll raise them, don't worry.
Yeah, he's like, I'll teach them, I got it. And then he kind of trained them to be like guard dogs. So they don't really do anything except threaten everybody else.
And I feel like, sounds silly with animals, but they dehumanize the dogs, because even though they have a high role,
so
like
weird.
you said in the beginning, they have names, and then suddenly they're just bodyguards.
Yeah.
So
they never mentioned that. Yeah. And then there is some hens and some chickens. Hens and chickens, that's the same thing, right? Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty sure, because hens are female.
Just female. Well, yeah, because then ones are roosters. Okay, anyways.
Our outfits may make us look like we understand farms, but we do not.
Howdy.
Yeehaw.
Okay.
We have also a froggy or two on the table.
And
and there's sheeps.
Oh,
there are sheep.
Sheep are just sheep.
They're sheep. They're literally sheep, which that cracked me up.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
I like to myself, I'm like, the sheep are sheep. Haha. Anyway, so that's most of the characters.
Yeah. And so then, okay, so we were in the plot.
Yes. We are at the part where Napoleon gives his opinion on the windmill.
Okay.
And shit goes down.
Yes. Do you want to take it away?
Yeah, I can, but you can add stuff because I might be mixing things up. But basically, I think it was when Snowball's giving his like final presentation of like, this is what it is, and we're gonna do this. Napoleon comes in with the 9 dogs, and I believe that's the first time we ever see the puppies again. Is the guard dog form.
That's the reveal of the dogs.
Yes. And they run Snowball off the farm. Like, try to kill him, but Snowball gets away. And basically, Napoleon takes over. And I think this is one of those moments where the sheep try to, like, distract everyone by chanting. Because that happens a lot. Every time something crazy is happening, the sheep will, like, chant 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. That way everyone's, like, distracted by that, and they don't call out the bad stuff that's happening. So I feel like that was happening in that moment, too.
Yeah, so...
now we have Napoleon.
Yeah, it was like they were about to have a vote on the windmill, so it was like right after Snowball gave his last impassioned speech regarding why you should vote for the windmill. And his whole thing was like, so then that way they have that electricity and they can have a 3-day work week eventually after like a year of building the windmill.
They don't have to be overworked like they were with the humans. Their lives can be better.
And I think it also said in the book, like there was a line that was like, oh, and then at that moment everyone knew like the way that they were going to vote, which was like obviously they're going to vote for the windmill.
Exactly.
And then that's when the whole thing that you just described happens. So.
And Napoleon is the leader.
Yes.
Which is when things go extremely downhill real fast. And probably why the book is short, because it's just immediately, like, bad.
Yeah. It takes a nosedive.
So, yeah, the pigs, at this point, I feel like they were already kind of in control, but at this point, the pigs, like, really take over.
Yeah.
And,
like, officially decide to put themselves in charge.
Yes.
You know, like a dictator.
Yes. And we did forget to mention one very important character, maybe because we tried to forget him. Mr. Squealer.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
Mr., but Squealer.
Squealer.
The most frustrating thing. He is used a lot by Napoleon to get his propaganda out there. Anytime
yes, he's another pig.
Yes, he's another pig, thank you. Anytime Napoleon does anything remotely bad, which is all the time, Squealer comes in with some, like, impassioned speech about, no, this is why it's great, or why you guys are wrong and we're right, and it's like, oh. So.
And they buy it.
Yeah. I think something that I found interesting was the pigs start to slowly break the commandments, but if you remember, the other animals can't read, really.
Yeah.
So, except for Benjamin.
Mm-hmm.
So the other animals don't really realize. Some can, but it takes them a while. And the pigs were changing the rules, which they don't say till the end, but it's kind of obvious. And I felt so, like, dumb with myself, because I was like, oh, I can totally see, like, the foreshadowing of it's the pigs. I'm like, yeah, it's obvious. But I was like, oh, I see it. It's like, yeah, everyone sees it. But they were changing it to things like with the no drinking, it became no drinking to excess.
Yeah. And where it's like, oh, no animal shall sleep in a bed, and they changed it to no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets.
I know. And then they go, but we have blankets. I'm like, okay, and?
Yeah.
Practically breaking that rule.
Yeah, so anytime that an animal questions it, they go to the barn where they wrote all those.
It was always Clover, too.
Changed. Yeah.
Clover goes and reads it, and she usually asks another Mabel?
Yeah. Oh, Muriel.
Muriel, thank you. Muriel the goat.
She's not super important, but she reads.
But she can read a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so Clover would go over there and have Muriel. Why am I calling her Mabel? Oh my gosh. Muriel read it. So yeah. Do you have anything you want to add about some of the stuff the pigs do after? Because I know we don't have it written here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so they kind of just use, like we were saying, like tactics every time that something bad happens. So they go through, like, a rough winter, and then they, like, do end up starting to work on the windmill.
Oh, yes, that's very important.
Yeah, and Napoleon then says that the windmill was his idea all along, and Snowball was in cahoots with Jones from the very beginning, and that he was a coward, and then, like, that's why they had to chase him away. Yeah. And
crazy stuff that it's, like, shocking the animals believe it, but then you look at history of the world, and you're like, oh, this happens, though.
I know. It's so sad.
But yeah, like, literally saying, well, this was my idea and Snowball stole it. And they're like, okay. Or
yeah, and they believe him.
Yeah, or literally by the end of the book saying Snowball led the charge on the human side. Saying, like, something like, long live humanity. When in reality he said, like, death to humanity. And they did it sort of in a slow fashion. It wasn't, like, the next step. Like, at first Snowball just was in cahoots, but we didn't know. And then he was in cahoots, and he purposely led us to the barn to our death.
Yeah, they kind of just add something every time they say the iteration of the story.
It had a funny fallacy name on here, but it's fine. It was something slow.
Yeah, like it's
the slothful induction.
Oh my god.
Which I'm pretty sure that's what they use a lot of fallacies. Which I don't know why. Like, I really like whenever, not that I like fallacies because they suck, but whenever you can point out a fallacy, I feel very good. I feel like I learned them. That same teacher who taught Frankenstein,
for, like, a reason.
We learned it in that same year. I learned Frankenstein, and it was just like, that teacher was really good. And I remember learning, I'm like, oh, this stuff's so interesting. So now, like, literally watching a political debate sometimes would be like, I know a fallacy they just used. That's not real.
I feel like we had to do that in school.
We did, probably.
Yeah. Okay. But
so the windmill, though, that's a big deal throughout the book. The pigs, like we said, Napoleon decides to build it, and the animals get really into it. They build, like, either the whole thing or most of it.
Not the whole thing.
Not the whole thing. Most of it, and it gets destroyed in a storm.
Yeah.
Which they then blame no Snowball knocked it down, and it's like, you just had a massive storm, and it's a rickety.
And there was, like, a big tree that fell, and But then they blamed it on Snowball, and then everyone was like, oh, yeah, I guess he's right.
Yeah.
Because Boxer also, like, adapts the mantra, Napoleon is always right. Yeah. And, like, what he says, right? And so he believes everything, like he says. And he's like, oh, if Comrade Napoleon says it, it must be true. So he kind of just says that, and then, you know, the other animals are just like, okay, like, yeah.
Yeah. And then they have to rebuild it. I don't think it gets destroyed that time, does it? No, it's thicker.
So, no, they make it thicker, and then they rebuild it. And it's built at the end of, like, their date that they wanted to build it by, which was, like, a year.
Yeah, they finish right on time. But they do not get the machinery for it right away. So it was kind of like, But yeah, so just, like, the pigs were really crappy. And it was, like we said, it was a slothful induction.
Yeah.
They just slowly kept adding more and more, and Squealer was always saying something. And if someone did try to say something, the dogs would step in. That was a crazy scene, by the way, when the dogs just, like, killed everyone.
Oh, I know. I was going to ask about that, too, because...
Let's discuss.
Okay, yeah. So we can kind of discuss that really quick.
Yeah.
So there's a scene when Napoleon there's these 4 pigs who were, like, one of the only people who kind of spoke out against, like, when things were changing on the farm. And they used to have meetings every Sunday where they would, like, sing the Beast of England and then have, like, a town hall meeting kind of thing. And then Napoleon got rid of those, and then all the pigs, those 4 pigs were the ones who, like, kind of protested. And they were the only people who kind of, like, spoke up at first.
And they barely did, by the way. They kind of just asked a question. When Napoleon answered, they were like, okay.
Yeah, so stand up in, like, the lightest sense of the way. Yeah. And so then they're kind of pulled up to the front of, like, all the animals by Napoleon. And then he's telling them to, like, confess for their crimes. And then they admit to being in cahoots with Snowball. And the dogs rip their throats out.
Yeah. And then it kind of causes a chain reaction of more animals coming up and admitting, like, I thought it was so, like, not funny, but, like, a hen was like, I had a dream that Snowball told me this, and they kill her. And it was like...
No, okay, I did think that was funny, too. The dream was
It was like, girl. But people do that. People, like, I mean, people have dreams, and they're like, yeah, that was real. Like, people... I mean, now do we wonder, is Snowball supposed to be Jesus? Because I don't think so. But, like, Jesus comes to people in dreams, and, like, depending on your beliefs.
Okay, so I guess I wanted to ask you what you thought about that section, because...
I have a lot of thoughts about that section.
Like, obviously we know all of the stuff he's saying about Snowball is false.
Yeah.
And so, why do all these people come forward?
I don't know. I genuinely don't think Snowball has been involved since running away.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
I think he literally has not been in the picture. So everything these animals
only used as propaganda.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it does not, like, I don't understand why these animals are coming out and being like, no, Snowball literally told me to do this.
Yeah.
But I talk about
true.
It's not. I talk about, like, I have notes here about scapegoating, and I think, like, again, like, why am I blind to it? Here it is. I think, you know, we've talked about they're not the smartest, so I don't think they went through the critical thinking of, like, you know, no, Snowball didn't come to me, or they've been just indoctrinated so much into, like, everything is because of Snowball, so, like, this must have been too.
Yeah.
But they just are like, yeah, Snowball made me do it, and it's like, what?
Yeah, it's so weird.
I wonder if it's their way of making an excuse of, like, well, I would never do anything bad, but I was... told by Snowball to do it.
Yeah, it's just so weird because you would think after the first, like, dozen animals that got slaughtered, people would stop confessing to fake crimes.
I know. Maybe they wanted to be done. They were like, done with this shit.
That was what I was gonna ask, because, like, that was the only thing I could think of. Like, maybe... But then again, it's like, if we abide by the rules of, like, how intelligent all the animals are in the book, then some of the animals that confess, maybe they wouldn't be smart enough to even think about that, because it was like every animal.
Yeah.
Like, so many
of
them.
Like a sheep was like, he made me pee in the pond, and it's like, no, he didn't.
And then he got killed for that.
The hen and dreaming, though, I was like, Jesus, just don't tell me you had that dream, sweetie.
Nobody needs to know. Yeah. So, yeah, but anyways,
that was a crazy scene. I think I was curious. I didn't look into it yet. I was curious if that was based on a specific historical event of, like, mass slaughtering that happened, maybe in the beginning of the Stalin era, or, like, at the peak of it, because this seemed to be at the peak of Napoleon, because this is when, like...
this is kind of when all the animals are like, oh,
Jesus, okay. Yeah.
Like, this is when they get very scared into asking anything.
Yeah.
Because, like we said, it's not like there really was a whole lot of pushback at first, but they did, like, at least question.
Yeah.
And after this, there's pretty much no more of that.
And, like, genuine questions. You're just like, oh, why is this happening? And they're like, nah. And even Squealer, like, gets frustrated having to answer the questions. Like, I think Clover asked something once, and it was the only time Boxer ever questioned the new rules.
Yeah.
And Squealer was not happy.
Oh, yeah, he was angry. I actually have that written down later.
I can't remember what Boxer was challenging. Oh, I know what it was. It was when they were saying Snowball was in cahoots with Jones. Because he was like... I know what he's done now is probably bad, but I remember Snowball, and that time he was not bad.
It was because they were trying to say that, like, he was terrible at the Battle of the Cowshed and stuff, and Boxer was like, no, I was there.
Literally was next to him.
I saw him. He got shot.
Yeah. They were like, well, they purposefully shot him in a way where it's just a graze, you know, that was purposeful, which all I could think is, like, no one can shoot that well. It's like an old farmer.
A graze on a pig that's charging at you.
While you're charging at it. But animals don't think like that.
Right.
And maybe Boxer was, but the second they said, well, Napoleon said this, he was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, what?
I know.
But yeah, there's just every single commandment that we read to you, like we said, basically got broken. So they killed animals, and they changed that to, like, for no reason.
Yeah.
The pigs start sleeping in the beds because they talk about how they need to have somewhere nice to sleep because they have so much
they're
work.
So much smarter, and they have to do so much more work.
They find alcohol and get wasted, which we were just laughing about this. The next day after the pigs get hammered, Squealer comes out and he's like, Napoleon's dying. You know, we're losing our leader, our fearless leader. He was hungover. And then, like, they literally, like, that afternoon, he felt much better, and he came out. And the next day, it was, like, good as new. It was, like...
And then they ordered more alcohol.
Yeah. And they're like, we're gonna do this again. But just, like, literally when Squealer came out and was like, he's dying, I, like, stopped and laughed, like, genuinely, like, this is amazing.
I had forgotten about that. And that was also something I guess I didn't realize was funny when I was 14.
I think that is a big difference, is, like, we didn't pick up on some of the humor. Where now it's like, oh my god. They thought he was dying. I mean, too much alcohol, maybe, but, like, no, he just had a bad hangover. And we'll see the other ones get broken near the end, like, wearing clothes and being equal. And
yeah, so then, you know...
We can probably wrap it up at that part, honestly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so everything kind of just is in decline, as Napoleon is in charge of everything.
I will say, something that kind of keeps them in line is every time they question something, they think, well, this is better than when Jones was here. Or, well, if we stop this, Jones comes back, so...
Yeah, and that's what kind of Squealer says to them, and kind of they question things. And he kind of also throws, like, numbers at them, like statistics. Yeah. It's just mentioned that he's saying, like, oh, well, actually, we have this many more rations.
I hate it.
Yeah. You think at some point they just run out of numbers? Like, how high could they have started when they haven't hit zero?
Do that, or be like, suddenly we found all of these documents proving that Snowball was evil. And I'm like, shut up. Show them to me. Really, they would, because they're forged, just, like...
Yeah, so they keep just changing history so that people forget, which is 1984 again. So yeah, basically Squealer gaslights all the animals on the farm until they think that they don't know what happened anymore. And everything goes into decline, and there is another charge, like, led by the humans again, trying to come take the farm back. And so the windmill is in danger again. And
that's why in my mind I was thinking something bad had happened to the windmill.
So they kind of dig a hole. They come with, like, hammers and, like, pickaxes and stuff, and they're like, oh, well, they'll never tear down the windmill like that because we thickened the walls this time. And they did, but that was not the humans' plan. They dig a hole in the ground, and Benjamin's like, don't you guys know what that means? That means they're gonna blow it up. And sure enough, they blow it up to smithereens. Like, there's nothing usable.
So it is destroyed a second time. Okay, that's what I was wondering. I was like, I know something does, like... Because I remember just being like, God, this windmill is just absolutely...
a lost cause. At this point, come on, you built 2 windmills. Well, 1.5, I guess, but still.
I have a question about that scene. Do you think Napoleon wanted it to happen?
I actually thought about that too. So I'm not sure, because I do think it's weird. I mean, at first they were kind of just worrying about protecting Napoleon, and he is kind of, which, I don't know, it's, I guess, kind of funny that his name is Napoleon, but...
It's purposeful.
But then he's kind of just, like, hiding. I feel
Yeah.
like they don't really do anything to protect the windmill once they realize what's happening to it.
Yeah.
And so they did defend it, and they were getting, like, destroyed by the humans. Mm-hmm. And so they ran inside so that they wouldn't, you know, get murdered.
Mm-hmm.
But then once that starts happening, it's not like they try and do another charge. Napoleon doesn't lead a charge. Squealer doesn't lead a charge in the name of Napoleon.
I can't decide, like, I don't think there's, I mean, I could reread it, but I don't know if there's enough evidence to say, like, Napoleon almost planned it, because we also, like, haven't said, but Napoleon does talk to a human.
Yes.
So, like, I had, like, a conspiracy theory of, like, what if this was purposeful on Napoleon's part?
Yeah, and he comes to the farm so that he can do dealings with
Business
other farms.
Yeah.
With other humans.
Because I felt like the windmill was, our little bunny fell, was Napoleon's tool to keep them busy and keep them distracted. So if you finish the windmill, what's going to distract them? What's going to keep them busy?
True.
So I felt like every time it got close, it was a good thing for him that it got destroyed. So I don't, like, maybe after the first one got destroyed and he realized it could keep working, he's like, oh, maybe it's better off that this never gets finished. So I just felt like he wanted that thing to be destroyed. Because then you can see at the end, they've, like, literally, like, one of the last pages, it's like, yeah, we finished the windmill. Yeah. But now we're building another one. So, like, they will never be finished building windmills.
Yeah, I was going to say, so they start rebuilding it again, right? And then that's when tragedy strikes. Yes. Okay.
R.I.P.
So, we'll discuss the best character in the book. Maybe I'll give away my best character now. But he's my favorite. Boxer, the horse. He works very hard.
Baby.
His motto that he gives himself is that I will work harder. So he's just, like, always...
He wakes up so early.
He fell victim to the system. He's working a 9-to-5 job every day.
Stop. Literally, no, like, 9 to 5, and then 8:45, and then 8:30, and then he's like, I'll get up a couple hours early, spend my free time working, because they have to collect stones.
Yeah, for the windmill.
Oh.
And they have to, like, drag the stones up and then break them because they're too big.
They can't use the machines. Sorry, I said that one. Like, they can't use the machines because then they'd be on 2 leggies.
Yes.
But, like, how do they do other tasks?
Okay, sometimes it would describe them doing things, and I'm like, I don't know how they're doing this.
Like, he is lifting him. I'm like, you're definitely on 2 legs then. Unless it's, like, by the mouth, but...
Yeah. Anyways, can't think about that too hard. But...
that wasn't his main point.
Yeah. So...
Or maybe it was, because it showed they already were breaking all the rules and it didn't matter, but...
True. Maybe we need to read between the lines. Between. Okay, yeah, so then Boxer's trying to work on this windmill, trying to drag up some stone, and then there's, like, a crashing sound because he's, like, fallen, and then Clover notices and then is like, oh my gosh, like, everybody, like, go get Napoleon or Squealer or whatever. And so then, you know...
Mistake.
Yeah.
Don't get the pigs involved.
So then Clover is there and Benjamin is there and they stay with him.
Yeah.
And so, so sad. And so then they, like, make arrangements for Boxer to go to the vet.
Yeah. Which was, like, stressed them all out because no other animals had left the farm except for Snowball, who was chased off, and Molly, who ran away.
Yes.
So no animal had returned from leaving the farm.
And, yeah, like, Boxer, they, like...
He was close to retirement, too, by the way.
So they bring him back to his stall, and then he's talking about, like, retirement if he recovers at the vet. And then he was like, oh, yeah, I can live, like, another 3 years if I go to the vet and everything's, like, fine. And so they, I guess, wake up, like, the next day, and then Clover notices that Boxer isn't there, and so then they, like, run outside, and then he's, like, in a truck.
I think it was while they were working. So they were working, and Benjamin, that was one of the first time he spoke up. Like, Benjamin was noticing all the atrocities the whole time, and this was kind of the first time he snapped and was like, guys, come check this out.
Yeah.
And he was getting put into a van, but none of them could read. So they're like, oh, yay, the vet's here.
Yeah.
And Benjamin pretty much calls them stupid and is like, it's the glue factory and the slaughterhouse. Like, come on, you guys.
Yeah, and then... so sad. Boxer. So after Benjamin says that, then Clover starts yelling, like, oh my god, get out of there, Boxer. Like, you have to get out. Like, they're gonna kill you. And then, like, they don't even think that he heard, but then they hear him slamming against the door. And then it like describes like, oh, when he was like in his prime and like, you know, he could work really
That
hard. He
killed
could have
me.
kicked the door open, no problem.
Because then I pictured Boxer getting sad thinking about how weak he was.
Yeah, so he couldn't get the door open. They heard him kicking against it.
Stop.
As the
You're making me
truck
sad.
drove away. And they never see him again. And the pigs tell everybody that he went to the vet and that the vet just had a van that used to belong to the glue
That
factory.
part annoyed me. Squealer was like, you guys are stupid. Obviously it was the vet and he just didn't repaint his van yet. And I'm like, okay, even if that's true, they're not stupid for assuming that. Squealer, like, at least try to be like, oh no, I get it, you guys, but this is the reality. He's like, no, dumbasses.
Yeah.
But
And then they have like a little service
Yeah.
for Boxer. And the thing is, they kind of use that, the pigs, as more propaganda.
Yeah, they
don't
do.
even let Boxer rest for one day. And they're already dragging his name up there so that they can talk about what
Piss
he
me off.
always told himself.
Napoleon
is always right. And work harder. Which he literally worked himself to death.
Sad.
Which, wow. Everybody should read that. Because
I know it's a common
corporate
saying,
America.
but there's a
Wake
Disney
up.
movie where they say that, and I'm like,
A Disney movie?
it's Hercules.
Oh.
Sorry, Hades in the beginning, he's like, says something about that, and Zeus finds it ironic since he's the god of death.
Wait, working to death?
Yeah. He's
I
like, I'm gonna
guess
work
I-
myself to death.
Oh,
And it's Hades, and his job is
Oh, okay, yes. I'm sorry. I did not understand your context.
death. My brain is forever on 1997 Hercules by Disney.
Yeah,
Like-
Hercules is great.
That I'm so sorry, but literally my mind the second you said that, even though it's the most common phrase, I'm thinking of Zeus like laughing in my head. So that's how my brain works. Loved that little divergent. That also wasn't correct, but I said it like that because I thought of the other book. So yeah, basically we've talked all about these examples of what the pigs have done bad. And the animals start to question, they kind of speed things up a little bit after these examples. I want to say after Boxer's death, things kind of speed up, and they
That's
basically...
Boxer's death is pretty much like right
The
before the end of
climax,
the book,
yeah. And there's a quick ending. But basically things just continue to get worse, and they always question, well, this might be better than when Jones was here, but a lot of them can't even remember
don't
when
remember,
Jones was
yeah.
there. Which sounds eerily familiar. It's 1984.
Yes.
And then it starts to get, just like we said, worse and worse. And one day, humans come to visit. And the pigs are, before that, I should have said, the pigs come out standing on two legs.
yeah.
Dun dun dun!
They kind of just walk around. They just like take a lap around
Yeah.
the farm, which I thought was like funny.
And they're wearing clothes, and Napoleon's holding a whip, and then the other
Yeah.
pigs start carrying whips. And they start to realize, no, things are worse than when Jones was here. And the book ends with the local farmers, who they'd had the entire book been in fighting with, come over and are praising the pigs for how strict of a farm they have. Pretty much,
Yeah.
and they prove, like, yeah, your farm is worse conditions than ours and produces better than ours because you're being even worse to your workers than we are. And that's when we get the very interesting scene where the animals can't tell the difference anymore between the pigs and the humans.
Yeah. They're looking in on them, playing
Yeah.
cards.
Playing poker, drinking.
Yeah. And they can't tell.
Yeah. Which we were discussing earlier, like, why did he choose pigs? Because we like pigs. And my guess was just, like, maybe they're the most human-looking animal, just, like, with the skin tone.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And, like we said, the intelligence. But yeah, I thought that was a very interesting line.
Yeah.
I feel like the book could have ended where it says the are created equal, but like not all are equal.
Oh,
It could have
yeah,
ended there,
so-
but then they took it like one step further.
Yeah, I agree. So the animals go to the barn where all the commandments are in, and all of them have been like,
Fully changed.
yeah, completely like
Oh, they were
blacked out.
erased. Yeah.
Like, so there is none anymore, and the only part that was left there was all animals are created equal, but there was a part added that says, but some are more equal than others. So.
And that could have, like, I feel like this shows how good of a writer Orwell is, because I feel like he could have stopped there and that would have been good, but I did like the, like, full transformation into human of just, like, yep, these are not. I think that was literally the last line, was like, they could no longer tell the difference. Something
Yeah.
like we got the book in front of me, I'll read it, because I like it.
Yeah.
That's the afterwards. I I hope you guys like the ASMR. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. And that is why Animal Farm is a classic.
Yeah.
So, now that we've gone through the plot, there are a few things we can talk about. Actually, before we talk about the themes, because sometimes we forget to do this one, what was your favorite part, Marina?
Oh, okay. Yeah, my favorite part. Okay, so my favorite part, which I think I kind of gave away earlier, was it's when Boxer finally questions Napoleon.
Yeah.
Just because...
You go, Boxer.
Like, I guess we've talked a lot about, like, the intelligence and everything, and it's just, like, I don't know. I feel for Boxer. He's just, like,
He's trying.
What is the word? Himbo? He's a himbo.
Stop! You're right.
It's just sad. He's just, like, so nice to everybody, and he just wants the best, and he just falls for whatever is being told to him, and it's really sad.
And he finally starts showing critical thinking skills.
Yes.
He gets shot down.
Very tragic. So, yeah, that was my favorite part.
My favorite part, if you were done with yours,
Mm-hmm.
you were done, but I don't know, I wanted to make sure. This isn't something I said yet out loud in the podcast, but it could have been hinted at. I got the feeling midway through reading that this book is like a symbolic prequel to 1984. Because if you remember from the 1984 podcast, again, go listen to it. He kind of questions Winston, kind of questions, you know, what was it like before this time? How did we get to this? He would ask people, and people would be like, I don't know. And and Animal Farm people would be like, I don't know. And so it was just like, this is like the animal cartoon version. Like if they made a movie about it, and it was...
Well, there is a Animal Farm movie.
No. I mean, like in that actual like alternate reality of like 1984, if people were like, no, this is what happened, but we used farm animals. It's literally like this book. So I like that realization. So that's one of my favorite parts. It's like, oh, you clever little guy. Yeah. Even this one came out after, right? No, the other one.
This is the first one.
So yeah, so he wrote it like a prequel and a sequel. I don't think he actually did.
Yeah, but it's just like you can see. Mind. I guess it is interesting. I guess that we read them out of order. Not that they're related, but just that you can see now that we've read 1984 again. Like I have that refresher of like, oh yeah, that is directly from Animal Farm.
Yeah, it's like the established society that Animal Farm tried to build up. Also, we didn't say this. They changed. Napoleon changes the name of the farm back to Manor Farm, which I just thought was a good point. So yeah, that was my favorite part. Realizing that these books are more connected. Yeah. Okay. So now we can get into some symbols and some themey themes.
Yeah, so sorry,
just
anything that we haven't. Just anything we haven't talked about yet, I guess.
So I have a few things here because this was a good book. There was a lot of scapegoating, like a lot, which I found interesting. Yes. Like we said a bunch, Snowball was literally just used as a scapegoat the whole time. Yeah. Would have been fucking hilarious if it was a goat.
Yeah.
Really not that funny, but that would have been so funny to me. I'm laughing to myself already. Also, Jones is used as a scapegoat, kind of like, oh, well, this happened because of Jones, and it's like, no, Napoleon did this. I don't really know. Like, it's just an interesting like motif maybe to point out that's going on. And I even point out, it reminded me of the stories like the lottery and the ones who walk away from Omelas. Not that things happen, but those two stories have a lot of scapegoating. So if you're interested, yeah, I would say Omelas might be scapegoating because they are like putting the blame on something that I won't give away in case you haven't read the story and you should go read it. But the lottery, that's literally the entire purpose of the lottery. Yeah, is that. So yeah, those are two good stories, but we don't have to go too deep into scapegoating. You can look that up yourself. The political stuff and propaganda, we've been talking about that this whole time. The entire like method that Napoleon and all the pigs use is just propaganda. And
just erasing history.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you realized a good point earlier. What did Squealer remind you of?
Oh, yeah. So Squealer just, like, it made me think of, like, the Secretary of Press that we have, like, in the United States. Because it's just, like, we never hear anything from Napoleon, really. He hardly ever gives any speeches. Like, he has them here and there, like, when there's something very important and he needs to, like, change laws and stuff. But Squealer pretty much explains everything for him. Like, anytime they have a question for Napoleon, it's through Squealer. And he kind of says, like, what is going on.
Mm.
So it just reminded me of that because it's like that extra step you have to go through.
Yeah. And it's spun. Like, I think of after debates or like other things, there's like the spin room.
Yeah.
Thinking of like Parks and Rec, where it literally is just like turns the message so that it works for the audience. So like no matter what the original message was, it's gonna be turned. And that was Squealer's rule. And I thought that was a great thing. Maybe we can get like a little edit of a pig sitting up at like the podium in that room where they do the briefings.
Yeah.
Don't know if that'll offend somebody. But anyways, I don't think it will. But yeah, this whole book is obviously the biggest theme is politics. And like we said, it's literally based on Stalin. Did he come up with communism or was that Lenin? You're probably looking at me like, bitch, why'd you ask me that question?
Yeah, I am.
I'll Google that while we talk later. I always like forget which one did what. But this is like the big start of communism in like the world.
Yes.
At least in the European world. I can't speak for other parts of the country, the world. But yeah, and I'm gonna reiterate, it was very obvious while reading that it wasn't a commentary on like communism. So I am like, how do people get to that point? Definitely putting their own biases in, and maybe we are, who knows?
Yeah.
But it does feel like, I mean, we aren't because Orwell has talked about it, but it is like, it literally, with their original plan of like animalism, nothing's bad. Like when Snowball's in charge, things are good.
Yeah.
When they're actually following the order, things are good.
Yeah.
When Napoleon takes over and changes the rules and changes what's going on while still using the name, that's when things go bad. And I feel like a lot of governments have that. I mean, you could probably look at every country and look at what political ideology they're under and realize they're not fully doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you could even argue here, like, we don't do full capitalism or full this. Like, we're a republic, but we're not really. Like, there's just so much at play.
It's just using the title so that you get, like, the positive connotations with it. But then you're not actually doing those things that are part of what that thing is. Yeah. So, it's just very interesting. I don't get, except for, again, like, they just grew up during that time of being scared of communism, how they got communism from this. But I guess people didn't understand that either. They saw what Stalin did and they were like, oh, communism. And it's like, no, Stalin. Yeah. That's why it's called Stalinism and why the book's anti-Stalinism. Yep, that is the actual message of Animal Farm. Yes. So, English teachers, take note. Something interesting I thought, and I kind of wanted to get your opinion, and you probably see my note right there. Did you notice, like, religious and even sometimes Catholic undertones? I saw you write about this. And I was looking at it. I think that's a really interesting topic. I didn't necessarily think of that. I don't know if it's purposeful, but I mean, we can talk about it because it's cool. Well, so I feel like, I mean, most good writers, the names have meaning. I mean, and it's pretty obvious in this book, like Squealer squeals and Napoleon's the leader. You could even look at Snowball. He's a little cutie. But I think everyone's name was purposeful, and the raven, who we didn't talk about, but there was a raven who absolutely loved Jones. His name was Moses, and I just couldn't help but think of, like, the biblical references to it. And he talks about this special sugar land over the valley, which felt like heaven to me, so he was just constantly talking about that. And I thought it was interesting when he left, or when Jones left, Moses left too. So for me, it felt like a symbolic leaving of, like, religion. Yeah. Which made me, I want to Google real quick and see, like, with communism and with Stalinism, did that country lose its, like, religion? That would be a good point. I don't know if, like, you want to Google that real quick. In fact, I mean, that's a cool idea, though, because, I mean, earlier you did make that joke about Jesus. So yeah, so I just feel like there were, like, I just Googled it really quick. It does look like there wasn't a lot of religion based in Stalin's thing. And I do feel like a lot of people, I feel like people assume there isn't religion in communism, or am I wrong? I don't think that's correct. Oh, I mean, I don't know. I've never heard that. I could be talking out of my ass, but that's why I want to Google it. But I mean, that would probably have to be something you have to read of, like, accounts of people and how they felt with religion and politics. Because that is always intertwined. But I think he was more Marxism and Leninism. I don't know. But yeah, so I just felt like I was like, I wonder if that was, like,
intentional. And you wonder if Orwell was a religious or not, and so if that was like his sign of being like, uh-oh, things are going bad. Not that Moses seemed like a good character in this book, but it was just like, and then he does come back for a little bit, so that probably means something too. That's one of the things earlier when I was like, I wish I would have gone more into it. Like, I wish I would have thought more about like, what does Moses coming back mean? If any of you think about it, please like comment on anything of ours, or like message us, like, what do you think about, if you agree with this or not, and like if you do, like when Moses comes back and starts talking about like the Sugar Land again, what does that mean for like Stalinism and Animal Farm? I also think that it's interesting, I felt like the sheep and the pigeons were missionaries, because the sheep more like the pigeons, because the pigeons were literally told what to go tell people.
Yeah, and then they spread the word.
I don't know if the sheep would be, but they were definitely like devout.
Yeah, the sheep were just like the followers.
Yeah. And then I also have something, so like a common thing that happened with Catholicism a long time ago was that like, and could happen, not happens like now, because like they read in Latin during church, but like now people could, correct?
No, they don't.
They don't? Oh, my mom went to a Catholic church that did.
Yeah, that they used to.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, I wasn't sure if it was still a common thing. I did not go to Catholic church, if you cannot tell by that. So, like, the Catholic Church used to do all of their mass and church in Latin. And even when, like, the time of, like, a couple of years ago when they did that, at least we had, like, English Bibles still. But it used to be people couldn't read. So there was a very long time in, like, Catholicism. I think this was even, like, pre-Martin Luther, where they would just be like, yeah, this is what the Bible says. And they found out way later it's not. But, like, they could do that. And I felt like that was happening with, like, the commandments, because the pigs were able to change it because no one else could read. So I felt a lot of that going on. So that's why I put Catholicism also. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting topic to go into.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys have any comments on that, please let us know.
Okay. Do you want to talk about our favorite reoccurring theme on the show, which is dead babies?
There's a note there that Maria's making fun of in a nice way, that says probably infanticide, which probably should have a question mark there. I don't know if it's
I read it with a question mark.
I read it too. I don't know, like, if that was a big theme, but they, there are just moments of, like, feels like infanticide, like the hens get all of their eggs taken away, and they're like, that's murder.
Yeah.
The puppies are taken away from their mom, which just feels like a symbolic infanticide, because also their innocence is lost because they become these, like, monsters. This is not the reason, but like I saw the word used, so I was already kind of thinking about it, and they said something about like the society's infanticidal, and I was like, what now? What did you say?
But yeah, I definitely agree, especially with the whole like so when the eggs thing happened, like the hens are refusing to give up their eggs because then they're not going to have like any chicks that season if they just give up all their eggs, so they're saying it's like practically murder, which is what Monica just kind of mentioned a second ago. And
I don't have it written here, but I do think it's interesting. It feels purposeful too, because by the end of the book there's more pigs and dogs than there are any other animals. So it feels like purposeful so that they could be more powerful by numbers. And I mean that's obviously infanticide, but like why is that important? And I just think again it's because a society doing that is not a good society, right? And I even have one here as more of a symbolic one, like the windmill being destroyed. I felt like it was the community's baby, like Boxer's baby, and it was just like with the destruction of that stuff, it just like killed him a little inside, and every time that happened, like everything got worse. So yeah, infanticide. We almost did Oedipus, and I was about to like go ham on that topic.
Oh no,
but
yeah, we will get there.
Okay. Yeah, those were my main little thingies, and we usually talk about cultural impact, but we pretty much talked about this whole time how
that has been something we just mentioned a lot. I was gonna say, I know we kind of mentioned a movie earlier, maybe. There is an Animal Farm movie. I don't know how old it is, but I know there's an animated.
I see the pictures.
Yeah, there's an Animal Farm animated movie, but I've never watched it.
I didn't watch it. I feel like Orwell's are the only ones I didn't watch for some reason. Like, I feel like I've watched the movies of all the other books, but this one in 1984, I was like...
Oh, there's actually one in 1999. That's not, like, that old.
Oh. Huh.
That's younger than us.
We'll have to watch it. But I feel like it's not too far from the
Okay, that doesn't look like... Oh, that looks scary. Okay, anyways. Ew, we'll have to watch it and let you know. But, yeah. So there has been movies of Animal Farm.
My mind
Nothing
just...
that has stuck as much
Yeah.
as, like, I feel like it's not very well known at all.
Yeah.
So
I mean, also it has... I feel like animation doesn't always get that far. I mean, now it does. But Disney's not going to make Animal Farm.
Yeah.
What a self-commentary. Just kidding, Disney. Don't
Give
get
us a
us...
Spawn. Disney Plus.
Don't get us kicked off anything, Disney. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think that's it. I feel like I have so much to talk about, and yet we've talked about so much at the same time.
I know. Yeah, I guess that, yeah.
I want to, like...
That kind of wraps us up.
Personally will probably go more into the religious stuff. Like,
to look into
and
it.
maybe I'll post about it later, like, if I do find anything about Stalin and religion and Moses.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That's, like, one that, I don't know, you can kind of see, and then we can kind of, like, pick at it to see if there's anything there.
Yeah. So seriously, guys, if you think of anything,
yeah,
let us know, because we're just as interested as you are. And as you can see, like, sometimes our thoughts are not fully developed, and we want your opinion. Like,
yes.
Give us your opinion.
That's the whole reason we talk to another person about this.
Yeah.
That's the only reason, like, the only
talk
way
to each
your
other.
ideas can be fully formed.
I know, half of the ideas we say, like, I did not come up, like, the infanticide stuff, that's because I took a class with a teacher who was, like, really into it, and it's just, like, stuck with me, because I was like, you're right.
That is in everything.
That's in everything. Every time something bad's happening, it's because this is happening.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that wraps us up for today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so next time you join us, we're going to be covering our first play. And
by a writer that we like.
Yes, so we're going to be reading The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, which I'm very excited about. Yeah, so make sure that you keep up with us on all of our social media. If you follow us there, we might be posting something special soon. So just to keep a lookout for that. Maybe we might be doing some kind of giveaway. Maybe. Okay.
Who knows?
So on Instagram, we're at Summer Reading List Pod. And on Facebook, you can just search Summer Reading List Podcast.
Do you want me to say the next one?
Sure.
Twitter is also, it's Summer List Pod. And this will all be in our description, by the way, but we're letting you know now. And there might be another social media coming soon. Ooh, should we say what it might be?
Maybe something where you kind of film videos that are a minute or less.
maybe.
Okay. So we'll make an announcement about that maybe on our other social media. So seriously, go follow us.
Go follow us. Subscribe to our YouTube.
Yes.
Remember, we need to make some money. Just kidding, but we would like some subscribers.
Yeah. Our YouTube is also at Summer Reading List Podcast.
And read Importance of Being Earnest. And send us stuff ahead of time if you have ideas ahead of time.
Yeah.
That would be so fun. Like, we'll talk about them. We can give you a little shout out like we did with the reviews.
Yeah, and leave us a review on iTunes if you can.
That
really helps. It, like, recommends people to our show. So if you could leave a review there. Next time, I think we could read some more as a little thank you.
It'd be exciting. All right. See you next month, guys.
Bye.
Bye. We love you.